Welcome to the Body Talk Podcast. I am your confidence coach, Tabitha Sweeney. Next to me is Boudoir photographer Jill Barrile. Together, we are building an empire rebelling against diet culture and the insecurity that it creates among women. This show is raw, real, and vulnerable, showcasing all things related to body, confidence, self-worth, and the power you are about to step into, if you choose. Hello, lovies. We are back, and it is Tab here today, and I am with Elizabeth Snyder from Elizabeth Snyder Photography, and I am so excited because she focuses and really works specifically with women, with portrait work, with boudoir, and her entire mission is empowering women. And her and I had a chat probably about 2 months ago now.
I think so.
And I was shocked when she started telling me, and you started telling me, Liz, all of these things about manipulating photography before the digital age, which I did not know was a thing.
Yep.
So that's what we're going to get into, just how long we have been manipulating photography and really what it does to women. So welcome, Liz.
Thank you. How are you?
Good. Give us a little rundown. How do you describe your business and what you do?
So I kind of bill myself as a women's portraiture photographer. I do specialize in women's photography, which means that I light and pose for all women's body types to make it look not unlike yourself, but like you on a really good, pleasant day.
That's awesome, because you want it to still look like them.
Mm-hmm.
But yet there is an art and a beauty in photography.
Right.
So I actually recently had pictures done with Jill. And, it's funny because there's a picture of my butt, and everybody the next day was talking about this picture and talking about my butt. And I'm like, that butt is this butt. And it's the same butt, but it's not the same butt because I'm just not standing in this super awkward pose and holding it with my leg popped just right to currently get this butt to look like that butt. It's such a wild concept. Like, it's the same, but it's not.
Right.
And it's a light that we don't normally get to see ourselves in.
Correct. Yes. So that is something that I talk to people all the time about. And so typically when you have a photo taken of yourself, not professionally, but like it's, with your cell phone, or, somebody else kind of taking it for you, or, hey, I look cute today, whatever. And you're only seeing yourself from your own point of view. So you see yourself from whatever angle you're taking your picture with your phone, or you're seeing yourself in the mirror, and it's all from like your tunnel vision, right? Like you're always going to seek out the things that don't quite look right, or something that you're sensitive about. And when you see
yes, it's wild because we are our hardest critics.
Absolutely.
Yay, Jill is about to jump on, and I'm going to let her get settled. Well, Liz, can you talk to me about manipulating photos like before the digital age? Because I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, so photography started in the early 1800s with daguerreotypes. I can't pronounce the name. It's a French guy. So he did like the first wet plates on glass, and then it grew into tin types, which was a little cheaper. And then, of course, film. And in those early days of retouching, you were actually able to do something called etching on the glass. So they literally took India ink or a scalpel, like not unlike, a doctor would use, and cut away the bad parts. So like there's so many examples on the internet, but there's one that really caught my eye because this woman in her Victorian, garb was she was quite, she was heavier, and the way that the photographer had her posed had like three chins instead of, the one that wanted her to have. So he actually like marked out the place where he wanted to take off that extra weight and actually removed it. And there's another example too, like before they really got into like body manipulation, they were taking people in and out of pictures. So again, they would like, how is this aesthetically pleasing the most? And they would like take people out or add people in. And it was really, really easy to do it because, well, not really easy, but it was easy to do it tactilely, physically, because you have the negative right in front of you, which is on the glass plate. And before you varnish it to seal it, you can actually manipulate the shadows and the highlights and make it more aesthetically pleasing.
That is like, it's so wild to me. Like my brain cannot actually comprehend the fact that you could take the negative and like with your fingers or with a scalpel manipulate it and move it. And the only camera I've ever used is on my iPhone. So, clearly this is not my area of expertise, but I am so fascinated by it. When did we get into manipulating bodies?
So that again has been since the beginning of photography, because women were supposed to have the 10-inch waists, and men should be, yeah, exactly. And it wasn't just done to women, but it was most drastically done to women. They would take part of their body away. They would just skim it kind of off to make it appear even smaller than what they were, which of course makes everybody feel bad, because when they would use these in fashion advertising or women's magazines or wherever they were putting the images, the women that did not, and most of them did not have the 10-inch waist that we hear about. But if you didn't, and you're working on a farm somewhere and you're just trying to survive, like, of course you're not going to care how big your waist is. But when you see the ideal out there and you're like, oh, I don't look like that, it digs it. Like, it just makes you feel bad. And it's been happening forever.
And I wouldn't have necessarily even thought of this, but something that you pointed out to me previously is that before there was photography, there was paintings.
And that's the artist's idea of how you should look.
Paintings too. I feel like they were so, I love like the paintings of the women, and they had like the curves, and it's like, why did we get away from that? Like it was so like those old, like when they're so done like perfectly. What are they called? The paint, like super realism type.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Renaissance paintings. I feel like the Renaissance was like the prime for women's bodies almost. But at the same time not, because like of the corsets and stuff, right? But like,
well, they didn't have the corsets the way that the Victorians did. So they did have them, but not, a fuller figured woman was the ideal back then. Like, they still wanted that hourglass, but they wanted it a full glass instead of, a teeny tiny one.
It is so sad to me that this is how long body image issues have been going on for. when we think back, I mean, we are talking hundreds of years. It's mind-blowing, really.
I always tell like the girls that do like boudoir, right?
Mhm.
Like how our cameras now, we see so much. Like it's basically like taking a magnifying glass to somebody's face or like to their skin, you know? And so I
Mhm.
try to tell them, like, when I'm looking at a person, I don't see that blemish or like even like those stretch marks. Like I don't, at least like personally, I don't, when I look at someone, I do not see those things. My camera, however, is going to pull them out because that's what like it's meant to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like a reminder too, like even like on Instagram, this is like a snapshot of something, or like when you're seeing a picture, it's a snapshot. It's not three-dimensional, it's flat. And so yes, posing has a lot to do with it. But our cameras are like more powerful than my eyes. I know I have to wear glasses half the time to see. So it's like, think of having 20/20 vision and then zooming in on something,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
What is like the biggest gripe you probably get from clients as far as like what they're saying about their bodies? I'm just curious if you
It's
have.
always the stomach area. That's always everybody's most sensitive area. Always. And it's a shame because, if you have had a kid or you have,
Mhm.
lived your life, you're not going to have this perfect toned tummy. You're just not.
Yeah.
And I especially women who have had babies, it's kind of like, look, you brought a human into the world, like it's gonna
Yeah.
take its toll on you and it's
Yeah.
okay. That's a
Yes.
good thing.
There's growth. It's like a physical growth. Like
Right.
we can only see so much internal growth, but it's like we could actually see a
Right.
physical growth in someone, which is amazing.
Yeah, we're always trying to be our 17-year-old selves who yeah, which is, that shouldn't be the ideal. Like a child should
Right.
not be the ideal. It, yeah.
Right.
No, it is.
Right.
We talked about that not too long ago on a different show
Mhm.
with the nutritionist that we were
Mhm.
talking with, and she had said the same thing. Like, why do we feel like 20 years is supposed to go by, but our body is still supposed to look the way it did
Right.
at 17? Like,
Yeah.
Mm.
it's absurd when you actually break it down and think about it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who wants to be 17 again? Like,
Oh my
I
God,
mean,
no.
you couldn't pay me to go back to those years and have
No.
to go through everything until like this point. No
Right.
freaking
No
way would
way.
I want to do that.
No. No, I've been, it's funny too. I've been doing senior pictures for a long time now. And like different schools will have their different uh whatever it's called. Like you have to have a file of a certain size. Their heads have to be a certain size in the frame of
Yep.
whatever. So there's one school in particular that I will not say out loud, but I loathe their yearbook standards. They want a headshot and a full body shot, both for the seniors. And myself as a 17-year-old girl or 18-year-old girl, I would have protested. Nobody
Yeah.
saw I was so insecure. Like it's such a crap thing to do to the girls, Like I feel like the boys typically don't really care, but the girls are going to care.
And that's super uncommon. Like that's like not like
I've never heard that.
Like I've never seen a yearbook that had like a full body like next to the headshot. Like
Yeah.
I see candids, right?
You have to tell us like off air.
I will. Yeah.
Sure.
No, they're asking for that. So they have like a baby picture, the headshot, and the full body shot. And they're doing spreads of the seniors in that way. And it's
okay.
kind of awful.
I can see if you're doing a full body shot, like doing something like if it was like your choice, or you're doing something like a sport or
Sure.
I don't know, something you enjoy, I guess, or like
Yeah.
I
No,
don't know.
it's like you have to be in all black and you have to be standing and you have
Oh,
to
it's like that.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like that specific. Oh, that's
Yeah.
like gross. I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like
That's
it.
I don't
very
like that at all.
strange. I
Yeah.
wonder why they decided to do that. Like, what's the like thought process behind
I have no
that?
idea. It's been like the last 4 years that the school has been asking for it. And
Interesting.
yeah,
Huh.
I
That is
hate
very interesting. And how are like kids responding to it? Are they like, we have to do it? Do we have to
Yes.
do it? Kind of like
Yes.
questioning.
Yeah. Like,
That
puts
okay,
a
that's what
stress
they
on
said
them
they
that-
needed.
because
Yeah.
your senior photos are supposed to be like so much fun.
Right.
Like, yeah, you shouldn't be having to take photos that you're not excited to take.
Right.
And if it's not expressing yourself,
No.
especially in this day and age, like I feel like we should be embracing self-expression, not I mean, I went to a public or a private Catholic school, so like the only way we could express ourselves is through our like fun socks, and eventually they took that away from us too. So there was very few moments you could like do something, of self-expression, really. And so
Well, and
at
that's
that
what bugs
age, yeah,
that's
that
what
age,
bugs me
it's like
about the ones
time.
that have like, you have to wear a tuxedo or you have to wear the drape or you have to,
Mhm.
it's like who cares? Like they want the
Yeah,
yearbook to be this aesthetically pleasing um album, and
yeah,
that's not who the kids are. Like it should be
right.
about who the kids are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's talk about self-expression for a minute though, because how do you
yeah.
feel like photography, like when you're talking women's portraiture, how does that help you discover your self-expression or let it out or like play into that?
So it depends. So like if it's the first time I'm photographing somebody, it's going to be a completely different experience than like the second time I'm photographing somebody. um the first time I'm photographing somebody, it is a lot of nerves and it is a lot of me giving them instructions so that they're not thinking about how nervous they are and trying to make them laugh or take a breath and just breathe through it and get that shot. And for me it's about expression. So if I'm doing a branding shoot for somebody, um, and their branding is, let's say, party planning, right? Like we want that to be up and happy and, maybe a little glam and maybe, and it's going to be a lot different than what I'm doing for somebody that is a lawyer, which is going to be much more, you're going to bring it down. It's going to be very grounded. You're not going to have the big happy smile, um and like I've heard that like when you when you do make somebody who's like a lawyer with their headshot, if they're like really big smiling, they look almost predatory when somebody's trying to look for it. So that's
You're
something
like
that I'm
too
trying to be
friendly.
cognizant of as well. But yeah, by the second time women are like, I love what you did, but here are even more outfits and this is what I'm after. And they're just more sure about themselves and how they want to be perceived.
So it almost takes like one full round just to almost for them to figure it out. And then the
Hmm.
second shoot is almost like the truer version of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
I have to say really quick, as we're talking about self-expression, I had the most adorable old lady just walk by my car.
Mhm.
Or no, she was on a bike and she was decked out in I think every single color with a cowboy hat on, big glasses, and her bike was like decorated with glitter and sequins.
That makes me so happy.
Hell yeah for self-expression.
75 years from now, that will be my daughter.
Yeah.
Yes. Lady looks so happy. She's like fixing her hat. She looks over at me. We smile at each other. I'm like, hell yeah.
I feel like photography can be a double-edged sword because on one hand, in so many ways, it can make us doubt ourselves, right? And in so many ways, if we give it the chance, it can also make us feel better than we've ever felt about ourselves. So how do we kind of like, how do we get women to understand that what they're seeing, they don't need to look like what they're seeing to come in and experience this for themselves?
That's tough for me because by the time they are on my website filling out a form and setting up a consultation, they know they want to have their picture taken. Like that's the thing. Like they know they need this and want this. So I don't do a whole lot of talking people into it.
Okay.
I talk people through what the experience is and how much fun we have, and that, you know, especially for Boudoir, like by the end of it, I'm your best friend because at the end of the day, a stranger is taking pictures of you in your underwear and you're going to have the pictures to prove it. Like that's scary, right? Like
yeah.
So for me, it's, you know, assuring them that like the only one who sees the extra 5 pounds that you just put on is you. Assuring them that like in posing and lighting alone, I'm good for like 20 pounds, depending, you know? And of course there is Photoshop at the end of the day. And even like the Dove ads or, you know, Victoria's Secret's getting a little better, but like some of the more teenage brands of like clothing and underwear, like they're going more unretouched. They're showing that women have cellulite, which is great. They're showing a roll, they're showing a fold, you know, which is fabulous. But they are still retouching because people are not ready to see a completely unretouched photo. You know, there's color grading, there's lifting skin tones or darkening skin tones, there's still dodge and burn. So even though we're leaving some of the what would traditionally be the imperfections, we're still trying to perfect that imperfect image. Yeah.
And I don't know that that will ever like completely go away because I'm just thinking about like, you know, Instagram and filters and TikTok filters. And like part of me loves them because they're just fun. Like it's just fun to scroll through and see how quickly the photo changes. But
sometimes it's about you, like just embracing your alter ego too, and a cleaned up version of yourself or a different version of yourself.
But I do love seeing the campaigns that are starting to leave some cellulite and some not like 6-pack abs because you know that's a whole nother set of like you know, beat myself up over it issue. I mean, well, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it reminds me of there was a special with like Mariah Carey that she was singing or something for somebody, and she was in like a midriff costume and she had somebody airbrush abs on her, and she clearly was not built to have like her body type at she's like 50, I don't know, like she's not like she's a woman, you know. It's fine to not have like this totally toned stomach, but it just it's that has been requested of me sometimes, like, can't you just like do this? I'm like, it's not gonna look good. Like I can, but I mean, you don't want it, trust me. Like just, you know,
and you know, I feel like I've said this, me and Tabitha talk about it. It's like the more we're seeing everybody's body, the more normal it's gonna get. So you should be, if you're not seeing your body, you should be the one putting it out there of like, this is a body and there's this type of body and deal with it. Or like, you know, because the more we see different people's bodies, the more it's going to become normalized. And until we see everyone's bodies, it won't be. So if you want to see it and you're not seeing yours, be your own advocate sometimes, you know. But it takes a lot. That takes a lot to get there. But I think we are going that direction. Do you follow like Lizzo's?
Oh my God, I love her.
She has a new like shapewear line,
Yep.
lingerie line. And I think that is just like, I love her. Like, I feel like anyone in the boudoir industry is like, yes, she is the ideal of like, just embrace what you got. And I'm going to not even embrace it, but like love what you have.
Love what you
And
have.
I'm going to
Yeah.
make everything work for me, for
Yes.
my body. And it's like, hell yeah. Like that's
Yep.
how it should be.
Well, and she was saying too, like with her shapewear line, it's not made to make you look different. It just kind of smooths you out. Where like, okay, so like I'm a huge fan of Spanx, right? Like like they smooth, they tuck, they, you know, they do everything. But she didn't, because she felt suffocated, you know, and she felt like it was trying to change her body, which she is a fan of, and I am a fan of, you know. So the shapewear line is made to make women who are a bigger size or whatever feel comfortable like in their bodies, which is not common at all.
Yeah.
No, I think it's amazing. And I think it is like when you said that, like it reminds me, and you said like you love Spanx because it pulls everything in. And I remember, and it just took me back to like being in college and like the Victoria's Secret like push-up bras that were like I don't even I don't and I remember like putting one on and looking at my girlfriend going, what am I gonna do? Like, and then I'm gonna go home with some dude and he's gonna be like, well, where the hell did they go? Like, what happened? Like, gone. Like, there's like it was, and I think that was part of where I could never like, it was like this false advertising that I was not comfortable with, but yet I desperately wanted cleavage and I could never find like my space in that world. Like, so that's all I could think of is like, yeah, it is about being comfortable. And man, it's such a complicated world, and it's so much unnecessary pressure and thoughts and time and energy that we are wasting.
Yes.
Thinking about all of this. Liz, I want to know if and there might not be any because I have no idea. I Googled nothing before I'm asking you this question. So I will but like the person that keeps popping into my mind when it comes to like photo manipulation and all of these things is Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
Are there any like stories about her or photos or?
So I don't know of anything specific. I know that they did retouch her a lot because she was the equivalent of a size 10 today. Like she did have the hourglass figure. Like it may look a little different than a size 10 looks on me, but they definitely had manipulated some of her photos to make her even more hourglass shaped. The best story I had heard was about Greta Garbo. So she did that I think that's who it was. She did this very famous pinup picture for, you know, the boys off in World War II. And it was her in a bathing suit with her hand on her hip looking behind her. And they did do a tiny bit of retouching on that, like, you know, skin and a little bit on her shape. But the reason she took that picture from behind was because she was pregnant and was a little puppy. And, you know, that was a good way to fake it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they didn't show pregnant people.
No.
They wouldn't show pregnant people on the
it was like a dirty
pictures
word.
or news, which is so weird.
I know.
Wow.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's really wild.
Yeah.
And that was like you said World War II?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a black and white photo that, you know, the boys would all hang up on their bunks or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's so fascinating to learn that photos have been being manipulated since so long before I ever realized it. Like long before any of us were born or
Yeah.
our parents were born.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so fascinating to learn this because, and then I think about how diet culture and this has changed from, you know, our mother's generation to now our children's generation.
Mm-hmm.
And how, if you think of the harm that it caused them, you know, back in the day, and there was no digital life.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And like
Right.
now everything is like in your face all the time. Like I used to say that about like bullying at school. Like you used to get off the school bus and you were like at least free until the next day. And
Mm-hmm.
like now with social media and the digital world, like there's no end.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's just, you know, when we think of it in terms of like we are constantly seeing these bodies, these manipulated bodies in our
Mm-hmm.
face. And I think it is because of photographers like you guys who make a conscious effort to retouch and edit photos but not change somebody's entire shape,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, make a conscious effort to photograph all body types.
Mm-hmm.
um that there's hope that we can that we can change things. Liz, what is your favorite advice for women, like just empowerment advice?
So I am usually talking people off a ledge. So like especially with boudoir because it is so scary. And most women want to cover up, right? Like so they're picking the empire waist with like the flowy little baby doll, or you know, something that has more fabric, but what it ends up doing is making you look even bigger sometimes. So even though it's hiding something, it's also like, okay, but now you're wearing a muumuu. Um, so I tend to liken our bodies as like vehicles, right? Like, so we're young, we're single, we're, you know, in college or whatever. We have the little sports car that we're driving around. You live life, you know, have kids, you are really busy, so sometimes you got to drive the minivan. You know, like it just
That's
it
funny.
is what it is, but it's your, in the end it's your body, it's getting you from point A to point B, and it's not doing any good to stress out about not only home commitments and family commitments and whatever else you have going on, but then you're also beating yourself up because you ate a bag of chips that day or whatever. Like, come on. Like have
Yeah.
some grace for yourself and just know that you're doing everything for everybody else. Like you don't need to also be beating yourself up about what you look like.
100%. I think that is like
Spot on.
empowering, because I
Mhm.
think as women we do not give ourselves enough grace.
No.
And I don't know when that started or why that starts or where it comes from. I just know it's like a universal feeling as women that we need to do it all. We need to take on more.
Hmm.
We need to be
Yeah.
perfect. And
A lot of that started, like a lot of the really intense advertising toward women started like post World War II. So like, oh, in that picture it's Betty Grable, not Greta Garbo, sorry. I just looked that up. So the the people who were bringing the boys back, right, like they needed their jobs back because women had gone into the workforce.
Mhm.
And women liked being in the workforce, and this happened in World War I as well, but it was more like because now we have TV and now we, you know, have radios in every home.
Yeah.
And so it's just a little more in your face. And
Mhm.
women were getting fired from their jobs because the boys needed to work, right? And So the campaigns, and really just these anti-women campaigns going on in women's magazines, on TV, during, the soaps and whatever, was all geared toward, a man wants to see his woman a certain way. And this is at home, barefoot and pregnant, or whatever it was at the time. And they were pushing diet pills, which were basically Coke. They were pushing, like, there was an ad that I saw one time for a tapeworm. Like, women would take a capsule that had a tapeworm in it, and to be skinny, and then you had to have it surgically removed when you've lost enough weight, or else you die. Yeah, like it was insane. It was insane. And even in Victorian times, women would chew, or not chew, but like swallow gravel to like cut up their insides so that they were more pale and white, because anybody with a tan, or maybe Italian, wasn't the attractive ideal at that time. So it was really like a push after World War II to get women back into the homes. They for a while, the government was paying for daycare in World War II, because the women had to work, because we needed whatever we needed in the factories for the war and for home and everything else. And the government stopped as soon as the war was announced as a victory. They stopped paying for that daycare to try and encourage women to get back into the homes.
That is like, I did not know any of that. And that is like the most backwards thing. It's like anything though. Like, I feel like we take so many steps forward and so many steps back for progress. And that just kills me a little bit.
I think, and I think of those women who at that time, like, trying to put yourself in that position where you went from not knowing anything else to then going to work and being good enough while the boys are away.
Capable.
Good enough or better,
Right? 100% capable of able to do that work. It's
and
like empowering.
I can't even fathom. I'm always amazed when I meet, women who are from that era, who went to law school. And like, I always think of like Ruth Bader RBG, right? Like, I always go back to her. Like, it was revolutionary in her time to go to law school and come out with the career that she did. I mean, and I'm, so thankful, but wow. I wonder what they'll say about us in,
100 years, because it was like almost, 100 years ago, which is insane. And it's like, it's amazing though, I think, when women find their power, what the hell we can do. And I've been having this conversation a lot with myself of like, we as women need to remember how powerful we are, and we need to like stop letting these social norms, or like the things that to distract us, like weight, like our bodies, like the things that were meant there to be distractions, from us to really take charge in our own, not even just our own lives, but like the progress of society, because we are 50% of society, yet we only get to show up like 20% of the time. And I think it's getting better, but I think as a female, I feel pressures on me that I don't feel like that males maybe necessarily feel. And I don't think it's necessarily, some of it I think is ingrained in us. Some I think is like ancestral trauma, like if we go really deep into it. But I think women can be so powerful when we are given the opportunity to. And things like Boudoir, I think, is like women saying yes to their power, and it's just like a step in them becoming more in charge of themselves and their world, essentially.
I agree with that completely. And I'm finding too more and more with boudoir, not so much with the younger girls that I do, but I don't attract a ton of them. I think just because I
Yeah.
am older now, and like my base kind of grew with me, so they're all like my age or older usually. And what I'm finding is that women are more and more using the excuse of their partner for like a gift for their partner, but they're doing it for themselves. Like, this is a pamper day and you're going to feel incredible. And at the end of the day, you're going to see really beautiful pictures of yourself. And what could be more boosting than that? Like, that is an amazing thing.
Mhm.
And oh my gosh,
And what that leads to, right? I can imagine you
yeah,
have so many stories of like, I did this shoot, I feel amazing. I decided to quit my job because it was hell or something like that,
right,
you know?
right. Yeah,
It's amazing what people can do when they feel good,
right.
you know?
Yeah, I was gonna
Ugh.
say I think it's incredible. I think well not incredible. Yes, wait, hang on. Start over.
What word? What word's coming to you?
I think it is we need to normalize the fact that we don't need to have an excuse or a reason to do things for ourselves and to put ourselves first as women. Um, because I think somewhere, especially the women who are moms,
Hmm.
somewhere motherhood became this like martyrdom, and we need to like stop it. Like it's okay to do something just for you and to spend money on you and to do something that's going to make you feel good. You don't need a reason or an excuse.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that that is something that is not normalized enough in our society, to just go out and decide you're going to feel good today because you deserve it.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
I agree completely. We, especially women with families, feel that way. And it's funny too,
Mhm.
like once your kids are kind of like out of the house, right? Like, or I'm finding this with like empty nesters, women that are, Gen X or even baby boomers. They get the kids out of the house, and then all of a sudden they have all this time for themselves, and they start really like Stella, like how Stella got her groove back, like you're really rediscovering who you are as a person, because
Yeah.
those responsibilities are gone. And why are we waiting until then?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
it's so, like, if you could just live your, like, okay, so I'm 41 this year, and I spent probably 35 of those years like hating myself because I hated the way that I looked. I couldn't bounce back to my teenage self, and you know, I had no confidence, and I like, all right, whatever, cared so much about what other people thought. Um and now, like, okay, so like I went through a lot of like health issues, and I've had cancer, and I've had surgeries, and I've had all kinds of stuff, and I don't want it to take that for my daughters to feel confident in themselves. Like,
Yes.
I was not always very conscious about how I was speaking about myself in front of the kids, but um as they got a little older and I started hearing them talk about themselves the same way, then I started to curb it, because no way am I going to allow them to talk to themselves like that. And really, no way am I going to allow somebody else to talk about me the way that I was talking about myself.
Yes.
You know, like,
Yeah.
it's astounding what our internal voices are trying to tell us, and it's always like your mother or your grandmother's voice. It's
Yes.
like, why are you wearing that? you know
In the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves,
yeah.
we would never even think it about one of our friends
No.
or family. So, like, why would we ever say, why would we ever think that they are thinking those things about us? Like, it, the stories we tell ourselves.
I know. And it comes from almost a self-centered point of view, because it's, you think everybody's looking at you and judging you, but I mean, nobody has time for all that.
No.
I'm sure it happens. We all know those judgy people, but
Right.
not to the extent that we are telling ourselves
Yeah.
that that's what's happening.
Well, and also I feel like those people, like you said, like we all know those people who are making those comments, but those are not people that I want in my inner circle anyways. So
No.
what do I care what they're saying about me?
Right.
Because they say it about everybody. So who really even believes the things they say anymore?
Right.
Liz, this was such fantastic conversation, and I so genuinely appreciate you taking the time to come and hang out with us and spend some time with us today. Tell everybody, who are you looking to connect with? Because I know that you're looking to connect with people both on a personal level of those who would love to use your services, but also on a professional level. And then, also tell everybody where they can find you. Where can they look up your amazing work and see snippets of things that you have done and people you've worked with, and hear what other people have said about you?
I would love to connect with any woman who has not been professionally photographed in a while. So on the personal end, maybe you're celebrating your birthday or an anniversary or a divorce, really anything, and you just want to get out of your comfort zone and do something a little scary, so I would love to connect with any woman who has maybe looked at boudoir photography and thought, no, that's not for me, because we have options. It does not have to be straight up boudoir. We can do glamour. We can do, maybe just a dressed up headshot, something that you can share with your friends and family and be proud that you have done something so many people think is so scary. On the professional side, I would love to connect with female business owners. Anybody just starting and needs content for their website and social media presence. Anyone that's been in business for a while and needs, a really great headshot that is going to get them the clients, get them the leads, get them the job, whatever it is that they're looking for. We are an all-inclusive studio. We have professional hair and makeup provided. We work with Blush Salon, and they are fabulous. And I feed you. We have, music playing. We do 5 wardrobe changes. My assistant is with us the entire time. I have an all-female team and a private studio. So, we try and get all of the scary stuff out of the way so that, we can make room for that true expression and that true smile. People can find me on, my website is elizabethsnyderphotography.com. On Facebook, I am ESPLLC, or Elizabeth Snyder Photography. On Instagram, I am Elizabeth Snyder Photography, LLC. And on LinkedIn, I am Elizabeth Snyder. I would love to connect with your audience and with you and with Jill. This was such a great conversation, and I cannot thank you enough for inviting me to be part of it.
Thank you so much for jumping into today's conversation. We truly appreciate having you here on this journey with us. Don't forget, if you liked today's episode and the conversation, go ahead and like this episode and leave us a review. If you didn't love it, that's okay. Don't worry about leaving anything.